And we are live from McKinney, Texas. This is the site of the 2019 Lone Star Conference preseason football media day. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams here, MidwestSports.net. Glad to get to be with you all today, and we have some special guests along the way, so we're just going to get right into it. Coach Bill Maskell from Midwestern State. Coach, a fantastic job up there. You got to visit, have three of your players from your team coming in, and that's without one of the big stars as well, too. Let's talk about all of those. But again, picked to finish third according to the preseason poll. And
I would have picked us third, but that's where I did pick us third. But the media, I knew right away when Dave Campbell's Sports picked us second that we were going to be second. Not that we don't deserve to be there, but I just felt like that we're not in that position right now. We should have been third.
All right. So when the season ends, though, you're hoping it's a little bit higher than
that.
That,
you always do. I mean, the competition that goes on within the conference, and really by the end of the year, everybody's all beat up. So you're not playing the same team that you played or were earlier in the year, and particularly when you go on the road, because at home you can dress more than your 60. But on the road, you're only taking 60, and by game 11, we might travel with 56 because we're all beat up.
You brought some great players today as well to come and to address the crowd and talk about your team. Can you talk about those young men that accompanied you today from Wichita Falls?
Really like what those guys represent. Austin Davis from Sulphur Springs has been with us 5 years. Filled in as a starter against Commerce 3 years ago when they had a great defensive end. Really probably didn't need to be in that position as a 19-year-old sophomore, and he's just gotten bigger and better every year. He's really into making sure the offensive linemen are every one of our offensive linemen are on campus this summer. And he's proud of the fact that he's the captain of the team and he's the senior spokesman for the offensive line, and a great student, over a 3-point student. He's just one of those guys that's going to do everything you ask him to do and more.
And then, of course, you had Jaden and DeMarcus as
Jaden, played as a true freshman. When we took Jaden I didn't want to say that up there in front of everybody, but he was not the top defensive back of the guys that we recruited that year. But he was the only freshman that played of his freshman class. Well, he said he came in with Robert. Him and Robert both played. But Robert was probably the more gifted guy. And Jaden ended up becoming a starter at the safety spot because our safety went down and really was a corner. And so we just transitioned him last fall and back to corner because we didn't have another, because Robert was down.
Right.
It was supposed to be Robert and DeMarcus, and Jaden's supposed to be the safety. And that's where he really needs to be. But he kind of has taken over Robert's spot, and he's not quite as flamboyant as Robert. Robert was one of those high energy guys, most popular guy on campus, most popular guy on the team, and the most fun guy on the team, where Jaden's more of a serious, let's go to work type guy.
You can see that today,
He doesn't say boo. He doesn't say boo.
Well, Coach, then one of your players also not here, one of the leading receivers in the conference and preseason offensive player of the year in the Lone Star Conference, in Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, Trey and I were talking about that, and I said, I really don't know that there's a dominant player, a dominant team going into the season based upon who's all coming back. So I said, the two guys that I think on our team that are our best two players are Juwan Johnson and DeMarcus Wilson. So the next thing I know, he nominated both of them, and Juwan becomes the offensive player of the year, and he's a very proud kid too. Now I was telling somebody earlier today that every Monday I get a report. Now I'm not there today, but when I'm in the office, every Monday I get a report about what he's done the previous week during the summer. And so I would guess it would be probably tomorrow or even maybe tonight. He might even show up at the house and say, Coach, this is what I've done this week. And he's a hard worker. He's determined. He's proud. He's a goal setter. It's important to him.
And you bring back then a receiver with more than 1,200 yards receiving the previous year. That has to be something, a positive too. The offense will look a little bit different, though. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, it will. One, we don't have the same signal caller.
Right.
2, we don't have the same quarterback. 3, we don't have the same running back. But we do have most of our receivers back. So we're going to have to grow into the offense that we're going to be, and that might take us a while to do that. We're in the firing pan right away with Northwestern State out of Louisiana, and our kids have been working hard. We've got about 70 kids on campus this summer. All of our quarterbacks are there. All of our receivers are there. All of our tight ends. Almost our whole offense is there. They've been working hard, and our Johan Johnson said no matter what quarterback you bring in here this summer, there's no way that he's going to beat out Zach Purcell. That's the kind of confidence that our team has in each other. So that's encouraging to know. Zach's only played about 40 or 50 plays total. So, he's a work in progress, but a good work in progress.
He has the confidence of his team, though,
and he has the confidence of himself, which is just more critically important.
Coach, one other thing really quickly is we get to visit now with Coach Bill Maskell from Midwestern State. It was talked about throughout the time on stage, and of course we get a chance to visit with you after as the main proceedings of the Lone Star Conference Media Day done, and the 9 teams have had the opportunity to get to visit and showcase some of what they're going to do this year. One of the things that stands out again is just the consistency of the program and the winning record year after year. But they talked about your consistency as well, and that was something that was not lost on you.
Well, that's my dad was a high school coach. I've had some great mentors outside of him, and Fred Pankos, who nobody's ever heard of, was very detailed, and at my first real Division I job. Bill Dooley, he was at Vanderbilt my first time. Bill Dooley at Virginia Tech and Wake Forest, and Rich Brooks is probably and Frank Cush. I mean, I learned a lot of football, and not just necessarily X and O's, and how to handle kids, how to motivate kids, and but the biggest thing I probably learned from my dad was you got to to get something out of something, you got to put something into it. And I'm a workaholic. I enjoy work, and our kids that we have in our program enjoy work.
Well, then as you prepare for 2019, and it's just a couple of weeks away before camp gets started, what do we expect for this year?
Well, I expect us to be competitive. I expect us to get better every week just because we are so young. I'm anxious to watch us practice. I mean, we had a really good spring. I think we got better every day. And we had 14 practices maybe. I think we missed one in there. Had one day that wasn't as good as the others, but in years past we've had some really bad days. that day that we were getting ready to play dodgeball a year ago, I mean, if we'd have went out there, it'd have been misery for everybody. And so we went out and played dodgeball instead of practicing. We didn't have to do that this spring. We had really good practices, and from what I've told with our strength coach, we've had outstanding summer. So I expect that to carry over into the fall, and this is, like I say, some of these kids they're so young they don't know any different.
Right.
They're just going to follow what's in front of them, and our kids like to work, and they like to compete, and they like to play, and if you like to work, you like to compete and play, you're going to get better every day, and that's our goal, is to get better every day and let the cards fall.
And if they follow what's in front of them, and what's in front of them are the 3 young men that you brought today to McKinney. It looks like they're going to follow well. Those
are 3 good leaders. 3 good leaders because they've with the exception of Jaden, the other 2 have redshirted, but they paid their dues. They know what hard work means. They know what loyalty means. They know what trust means. They know what buying in means, and they've all done it.
All right, success to you this season.
Appreciate it.
Coach Bill Maskell from the Midwestern Mustangs, whose team is picked to finish second according to the Lone Star Conference preseason poll. We'll be back again here in just a moment. Keep it right here. We're live streaming from McKinney, Texas, the site of the Division II National Championship game here in 2019.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. You're welcome.
We're back here live at McKinney, Texas, McKinney High School Stadium, which is the site of the Division II National Championship game this year. And we're here with the coach of the team who was picked to finish first, according to the Lone Star Conference preseason poll, Coach Todd Whitten from Tarleton State, the Texans, who ran the table last year in conference play and had a historic year as well. In your second stint as coach there in Stephenville, talk about last season and does that translate into this year?
Well, every year is new, so last year we have put that to bed. However, it was a special season. We had a great senior class. Our regular season was undefeated. We were able to win 2 playoff games and be eliminated in our 13th game, which was the quarterfinals, and just had a really good football team. A team that did so many things well. We were third in the country in rush offense. We had a really good defense versus the run. I think those are 2 real critical factors in being a good football team. We had a lot of skill kids that made big plays on both sides of the ball. And it was just one of those groups that got along really well together. They were easy to coach. They were fun to coach, and just not very many headaches along the way. So it was truly a special group.
You were able to turn things around there again in your second stint with the program, and the winningest coach there at Tarleton State in your time. Coming back, you brought a couple of strong young men with you today. Talk about them and the role they play.
Well, Devin Hafford is one of the toughest kids I've ever coached. He's a great corner, first team all-conference. He was the secondary player of the year in the Lone Star Conference. Tough kid. Zamari Manning is, for my money, one of the best receivers in the country. I think he was a 1,000-yard receiver. If not, he was right 980 or 90 or something like that. Big plays, lots of big plays.
He's right up there. It's close enough that it'll keep you up at night if you get that close to 1,000.
Yeah.
Make you want to get it.
He made lots of touchdowns. He made lots of big catches. Physical kid, strong kid for a wide receiver. So, glad we got him back.
Coach, talk about then this season. You said you put those things to bed then, and the last season it's now in the past. With the young men that you have out there right now, what does this season look like to you?
Well, we have a lot of guys back. We've got to replace 4 offensive linemen, and that's a big deal. You win championships with good offensive lines, and for my money, we had one of the best offensive lines in the country last year. So we've got to replace 4 of those guys. See how we do with that. Ben Holmes, our quarterback, we're still waiting to hear about his eligibility status. So certainly if we have him back, that'll be special. On the defensive side, we had 3 first-team all-conference players in our secondary. They're all back. And we've got good linebackers. We've got a veteran defensive line group. So a lot of guys returning with a few things falling into place for us. We have a chance to have another good team.
Coach, I think it's a really good point, and I appreciate you addressing that too, because you hear the old adage all the time, and it finds its way into commercials and jokes about defense winning championships. But because the offensive linemen, you don't see those stats as often. Sometimes that's not something that's thought of, and that really is plays a big part on the team. That's not just a pun. I mean, that's a big part of your team.
No question. And I like to say you win championships with linemen and luck. Linemen on both sides of the ball, and then a little bit of luck. But you've got to play well up front on both sides of the ball to have a championship caliber team. Usually.
Coach, one other thing too is we're here in McKinney and we're on the site then of the national championship game. Talk about what something like that means then as the Lone Star Conference, really a fantastic football conference throughout the country, and presence definitely being felt then in the playoffs in the last few years as well for a long time for that matter. But having then the national championship really in your own backyard, does that make it a little bit more enticing to want to play here in McKinney?
Sure. I mean, that would be just incredible for a Lone Star Conference team to be able to do that. We would like to have that opportunity at Tarleton. Our football team a year ago got just close enough up at Minnesota State to where we could kind of get an idea of what it felt like to make a deep run. And with just a little more luck, maybe, we would have been able to do that. So we're going to work really hard as camp opens in a week. As a staff, as the kids have through the spring and through the summer, and we're going to work really hard and try to go out and have a great season and get in the playoffs and try to make a run.
With the Labor Day, that gap of where everything is, it's pushing things back, I guess, a week. It's not really, but it feels like it's a week later because of when the season can start. So camp's just right around the corner, but it's just a few more days away.
That's correct.
You're ready?
Yeah, we're all ready to go. We're anxious. And then once camp starts is when you really get ready and you start putting the work in out on the field. But I think we've got a group of kids. Like I said, we've got a good group returning, 27 seniors. A few things happen right for us, and we have a chance to have another good team.
All right. Coach Todd Whitten, success to you this season and to Tarleton State, the preseason top pick in the Lone Star Conference in 2019 football. We're going to take a break, and we'll have one more guest on us with us here on the MidwestSports.net YouTube channel. Thanks for watching us. Keep us right here as we're live streaming from McKinney. We're back here in McKinney, Texas at the Lone Star Conference 2019 Football Media Day. I'm Joey McWilliams, and it is bright outside. The sun has come out, so there's nothing I can do about this. It's going to glow one way or the other. But I'm with the commissioner of the Lone Star Conference right now, Commissioner Jay Perner, and thank you again for taking time with us today. A fantastic event today, and everything went well, and just a great location here in McKinney, which I've mentioned a couple of times, the site of the Division II National Championship in football this season.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, thanks for being out here, and thanks for joining us today. Obviously, I did think it was a great event, and it was really important for us this year to host it here, I thought, just with the kind of cross-promote not just Lone Star Conference and football and going into this year and everything we're excited about, the expansion of the league, et cetera, but also the fact that we are going to get to host the Division II football national championship here in McKinney the next 3 years after a successful 2018, and just hoping to build off that success and to keep it in our own backyard is really important.
You talk about the expansion of the conference, and that really is that's a big deal. I mean, 19 members strong. You said the state of the conference is strong, 19 members strong now. It's you're almost your own regional down here.
Yeah, we are. We thought it's very important, obviously, regionalization in Division II. Those two words go hand in hand. It's obviously a pillar of Division II. So what we were able to do is just very important. Obviously, a lot of these schools are very close together. We were crossing paths all throughout the year anyways. Right. There's a lot of natural rivalries out there that we were already playing non-conference, but now there's going to be opportunities to play home and away, play each other in really meaningful conference games. So we think there's a lot of value there. But just coming together as a group and just the opportunities that provides from a branding perspective and just a visibility perspective, and to just really control this region was very important to us, and we think it's going to be hugely successful for the Lone Star Conference going forward.
I want to ask two questions about scheduling then. And the first one, a little more humorous maybe than the second one. 19 teams. Who's in charge of scheduling? Who puts that schedule together? Is that on your plate?
Yeah, I guess ultimately all the fingers would point at me. I do have a really good staff. Our conference staff is really good, and we've worked really hard on that. When I think back on 18-19, I'll think about the expansion process and the transition and trying to work with the new members and get them assimilated. But ultimately, it was a lot about scheduling, and it's a lot of trial and error and just putting it on paper and playing with it. And we obviously determine what our benchmarks are and our priorities, and then you just ultimately you got to start putting it on paper and start playing with it. And sometimes you're going through 150 schedules before you get to the right one. It's just part of the process. So in our instance, it was a good process, a healthy process. We included everybody, not just our current, the 11 that were there. Obviously, the 8 incoming, our 19 total were a part of the process the whole time. So it was a healthy process, but it was a long process. And I think we feel good where we're at. Ultimately, what I tell people, though, is it may not be perfect. What we're doing is unprecedented, 19 members. There's not a lot of 19-member conferences out there. So it may not be perfect, but we'll keep evaluating it and change it if we have to.
Okay, my second question, and yes, that goes a long way toward wanting to know that, because I've thought about that. That actually was the first thing that crossed my mind when I saw the news about many of the Heartland Conference teams coming in. But who in the world is going to schedule all this stuff? I don't know if I want that job or not. But that does lead to the second question, and speaking now with Commissioner Jay Perner here in the Lone Star Conference, with football having 9 teams, 8 games then against other teams. You have a couple of games then and slots that are open, and you all have found a way to get some of those games filled rather easily as you've collaborated with the Great Northwest Athletic Conference, and you all are going to be playing a good number of teams within, interconference between the two schools, and that should help some with your scheduling there. It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, obviously, we're very excited about that. A lot of work that went into that from both leagues' perspectives. I give a lot of credit to our council of presidents and the council of presidents from the GNAC as well. But a very one-of-a-kind deal, basically just started working together and say, hey, one of the hardest things to do in Division II is to schedule non-conference games, and it's really hard to get in-region games. So if there was an opportunity for us to work together, let's figure it out. And so what we were able to do is put together, starting in 2020 and 2021, we're going to have 26 in-region non-conference games against each other. So there's going to be a tremendous opportunity, now for not just for us, for our student athletes to play in-region games, but to travel and make some really interesting trips and to see some different places, likewise for them coming down to us. But ultimately, it's really in the best interest of Division II for us to be playing each other because, again, we are in the same region. And when you start talking about access to the championships and making to the playoffs, those in-region out-of-conference games are hugely important. So getting more of those on our schedule, having schools, having them locked in 2 years out, and being able to budget for them and just prep for them is really important.
And that has to go a long way for those programs. And looking then at the schedules as you all were posting the school's logos, some of the players that were here today, and you see some of the schedules of the teams. When Western Oregon shows up more than one time, that's not something that we're used to seeing in this part of the country on the schedule. Commissioner, one other thing, too, is as because we go back to football. You were talking about the fact that there are going to be some televised games, more televised games this year.
Yeah, we're excited to announce that. We can't announce it yet, but in the coming weeks, we'll be announcing our broadcast agreement to get 4 games this year on regional television within our footprint. So we're really excited about that. And it's just a start. We think we're looking at this as a springboard into doing more sports, obviously, and getting more of our members involved with potentially doing some stuff in basketball and in some of our spring sports. But ultimately, even really looking ahead to next year, and our goal is to get an LSC football game of the week on over-the-air television in our markets. We just think it'll be great, not just for our institutions, not just for the 2 that are playing, but for the conference as a whole, and all 19 members, even the non-football playing members, just opportunity to get advertising and branding and just get our name out there in our market and kind of really grow the conference, and obviously just provide some visibility for our great student athletes, many of whom you saw here today.
Well, and something like that then can build towards some of the non-football playing schools as well. When you have the success there, then success breeds success, and it'll find its way into basketball and some of those other sports as well for those schools.
Absolutely, and that's part of the rationale for us wanting to host the Division II Football National Championship. Obviously, it's a lot of work, but it's great, it's exciting, and it's great for the league as a whole. Our name is on that. We are the host. We're bringing people into our backyard here. And hosting probably this signature event for NCAA Division II, and we think it's just in the best interest of the league as a whole, from a national perspective, to be able to do things like that.
You would think we're outside right now because of all the natural light here, and where we are is in a conference room here on the south end zone of the McKinney Independent School District Football Stadium. And commissioners, we wind our time down, and thank you again for being with me. Huge windows, natural light is just flooding this place. But what we see out there is a fantastic football field, a fantastic football stadium, a great place for a football national championship, as this really just kind of dropped in your lap last year.
Sure did.
And, of course, you got the 3-year deal then to follow with that. What a huge thing, and for all of the coaches here to get to play for an opportunity maybe to play in their own backyard.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. Obviously it would be a tremendous advantage for us to be able to have one of our teams here. And I joked in my opening comments, but this is a beautiful stadium. I think I can only think of one way to make it look better, and that's to put about 10 to 12,000 LSC fans in here come December. So that's certainly going to be our goal, and I think we'll have a good opportunity to do that this year, if not at least a couple of times over the course of the next 3 years.
Well, the conference has a national championship to its credit very recently, and again, playoff appearances for a long time. Commissioner Jay Perner, thank you very much for taking time with us today. We appreciate being here. I'm thankful to get to be here and be a part of this. And we're going to wrap up our time here from the Lone Star Conference 2019 Football Media Day here in McKinney, Texas. I'm Joey McWilliams. Thanks again for watching us here on MidwestSports.net.